Welcome back, guys, to the channel. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, and today we'll be talking about players that you're going to want to watch, players that could end up having a huge impact in this weekend's Rams-Raiders preseason game. Before we get into it, I want to let you know two things. One, be sure to subscribe if you like this, be sure to like this if you like this, and be sure to drop a comment as always. Number two, I want to let you guys know that this is going to be August 21st. The watch party for it is going to be on this channel. We missed it last week. We're back this week. We're going to do it this week, 9:45 p.m. Hope to see you guys there. We're going to be watching it together. I'm going to take your questions. We'll have a fun time. We did the same thing with the Steelers and Cowboys Hall of Fame game. It worked really well for not really being a Steelers or Cowboys channel. So I'm really excited about the potential of these, these watch parties, and that's all I'll say in that regard. So let's get into it. Who should you expect? We're going to go through the offense, the defense, and special teams, and we're going to talk about players that you should expect to make an impact this weekend, okay? We're going to start off with the quarterbacks. We saw Devlin Hodges, and we saw Bryce Perkins. I've already heard people asking me, why is Devlin Hodges still on the roster? One, I got to say, that's my guy. I interviewed him pre-draft. I liked him in the draft coming out of Samford, so I'm not going to have any ill will towards him. Also, furthermore, I don't think he played all that bad. I do think Perkins played that well. And because Perkins played that well, it made Hodges, of course, look worse than he truly was. We've seen it in the past. Sean Mannion has had solid stats in the preseason, but if you're really looking at the preseason, he didn't really play all that well. It was pretty much check down Charlie, so to speak. You know, Hodges did miss on a couple deep throws down the field, but he did attempt them, and that was something that I was very interested in, plus his ability to work off schedule. Yes, he probably should have had a touchdown instead of an interception, and the Rams probably should have won the game, but that's neither here nor there. I expect him to bounce back in this one, but you're probably going to see a heavy dose of him and Perkins, and this is why you don't cut him, because John Wolford's not playing, Matthew Stafford's not playing. The Rams will not cut Hodges until the final preseason game has been played, because they're not going to have Perkins go out there and start the entire game risking injury and not having anyone behind him. So I hope that clarified that, why they're keeping Hodges regardless of how well or how poorly he plays. Same thing with Perkins. If Hodges won the third job, Perkins they'd keep on the roster for the foreseeable future, at least to the end of preseason, so they didn't run that risk. So I do expect to see a decent dose of both of them. I think Perkins is going to have another really solid game against the Raiders. You look at the running backs, I think it's going to be the same thing here. You're going to be looking at Xavier Jones and Jake Funk and Raymond Calais and Otis Anderson Jr. Now, I'd like to see Otis Anderson Jr. get more of a run this week. I think he will. But we will see in that regard. He is still on the roster. They did not cut him. So that is somebody that I'm definitely hoping gets a little bit more of a run. But keep in mind, I've seen a lot of people talking about this offense, talking about this run game and how they're going to be doomed, coming up in the offensive line. It's important to keep in mind the top 5 starters from left to right, Whitworth, Edwards, Allen, Corbett, and Havenstein did not play. So that would leave Noteboom. That would leave Evans. You get the point. The thing is, Noteboom didn't play either. And you had a UDFA who started the entire game at left tackle in his first ever game, Alaric Jackson. You had last year's 7th round pick and Tremaine Ankrum start the entire game at right tackle. Although, I'll be honest with you, he looked really good. And then you have Bobby Evans, who there's a little bit of a question mark. Is Bobby Evans, what is Bobby Evans? Was he going to start? Was he not going to start? Was this all a ruse? I mean, what is this? So that is definitely raising some concerns, especially with the running backs. Hard to evaluate the running backs when you don't have starting caliber offensive linemen up front. But you do have a good one at right tackle, and I'm hopeful about the left side, especially considering, Chandler Brewer's out there and Alaric Jackson, who is trying to make this roster. Did see some good things out of Jordan Meredith, though, the UDFA center. So who can you expect in the running back room to have an impact? I think the Rams are going to go more towards, all right, Xavier Jones, you got your feet wet, but we really want to see Jake Funk and Raymond Calais. And I think that's what we're going to get. We're going to see Jake Funk play the majority of this game. I think they're going to try to establish the run, open up the play action for Perkins. So expect Jake Funk to be a little bit, more involved in this one. Looking over at the wide receiver position, you do have the injury to Ben Skoranek, which is really upsetting, of course. And I think with that, Tristan Jackson becomes the favorite. And I think he's pretty much a lock now to make the roster. Had a good camp, had a touchdown, and then, of course, had his number one guy that was really pushing for that role in Skoranek get hurt. So I think Tristan Jackson has that wrapped up. I think they're going to try to get a ton of tape out there for J.J. Koski, who likely won't make the roster. I think they'd like to have him as a practice squad guy, but if they know that they're not going to be able to get him on the practice squad, they're at least going to give him the opportunities. We saw that. He started the game, last week. So I think Koski could be in for a game. I think we're going to see more Landon Akers. You saw the ability to stretch the field. It was definitely great to see that. Obviously, he ended up drawing a pass interference play, which was big for them. And I think you're going to see a little bit more, Tutu Atwell and Jacob Harris, but I think things will start to tone down a little bit. I think they really just want to get them out there, get into the stretch and give them an opportunity, but they don't want to run the risk of getting those guys hurt. This is a huge opportunity, in my opinion, especially for tight end Bryson Hopkins. This is pretty much it, I think, for him. If he doesn't have another, good bunch of preseason games, and he had his first last week, wasn't very good. If he's not really utilized, then I think he's going to be more of an inline blocker, and I think that's going to limit him to the point where he might not be as effective as the Rams need him to be and could be on the chopping block. He's a guy I really like. I interviewed at the Senior Bowl when he came out. He was really excited, talked to the Rams. They said basically they envision him as a tandem with Tyler Higbee. Well, you move forward a year or two, and now all of a sudden it appears that that's not the case. Jacob Harris is, right there. And, of course, Johnny Munt isn't going anywhere with Tyler Higbee. So Bryson Hopkins is looking at the fourth tight end spot right now. He did play a lot of snaps last week. We need to see more out of him. This is a huge opportunity, and hopefully he's up for the challenge. Kendall Bland was a really interesting one. I think he's dealing with an injury because he didn't play last week either, so expect to see him used, of course, in the offense. And then looking at the defensive side of the ball, we didn't get to see a ton of Bobby Brown. That's probably on purpose. You have the torn UCL in the thumb. I'm not expected to see a ton of him, and I don't think he's necessarily going to blow up. I think this is another game where you'll see Jonah Williams once again establish that consistency we've seen all throughout camp. He is going to be able to make some plays, and I think he could make this roster. I really do. He was around last year. I thought he had a shot last year, and then, kind of stayed around, I think on the practice squad in some capacity there, signed a futures deal. But then, you look at the joint practice with the Cowboys, you look at the, production he had in the preseason game last week. You have to feel like Jonah Williams is kind of on the outside looking in a little bit, but I think he can make a few, big-time plays and kind of set himself apart from that pack of, Marquise Copeland and Michael Hoyt and all those guys. I would definitely pick him over all of them. And I really like Eric Banks, but I haven't seen enough of him. So I'm thinking that Jonah Williams could be in for a pretty big game. And then you move over, of course, to the linebacker room. We had Jake Gervais and Ernest Jones as your two starting linebackers last week. Was really excited to see that. Ernest Jones getting his feet wet. Not too worried about him. I don't think he's going to play a ton. This is Jake Gervais territory, okay? This is Jake Gervais territory, and this is Christian Roseboom's territory. So the hope is that they're going to be able to see what they do in Gervais to try, maybe he can make the roster. He's a former safety. He's played in the regular season before. 2019 is what they brought him in as a UDFA out of Iowa. So he's played for the Rams on the defensive side of the ball and in special teams in the regular season. But now the safeties are very advanced here. It's a deep class. And on top of that, the Rams have moved him at linebacker in a very intriguing move, to say the least, and hopefully to try and maximize his potential. I think this is a great move, and I'm really excited to see how well he does in his second game, because his first game, back, to preseason. And keep in mind, he hasn't played preseason since 2019. He comes back and they throw him in the fire as a starting linebacker. We will see what he can do. They did cut Derek Moncrief, so that is something to keep in mind. They're going to have fewer linebackers out there. So it could definitely mean good things for Gervais and Christian Roseboom, but we will see. I think Gervais is going to have himself a really good game, could even come down with interception, showing that versatility, and of course the crazy athleticism that is really second to none at the linebacker position now that he's moved there. If you don't believe me, you can go to Relative Athletic Score and .com and check it out yourself. He is the most athletic linebacker right now in football with this transfer. So I'm excited for him. If Ernest Jones does play a decent amount, I'm excited to see him again. But I do think this is going to be the Jake Gervais show, and I do think we're going to see some good things of him in coverage. We're going to see some good things of him crashing the backfield, as well as Christian Roseboom. And then the back end of the secondary, you look at the corners and the safeties, I think you can expect another bunch of targets going at Bronte Harris, who's likely going to play and start like he did last week. I think they're going to try to pick on him early on. I think Kareem Orr is once again going to have a pretty quiet game. He's going to do a nice job of shutting down his man, keeping himself, keeping that guy contained. Alumba is going to play a lot of reps here. I don't think that was a surprise. Well, it was a surprise then. I don't think it'll be surprising when he replicates that. I thought he had some good moments in preseason. Tyler Hall did not get cut, so we're still going to see Tyler Hall, of course. And then, Dante Dion, it's a question. Is Dante Dion going to play? What was that last week holding him out? Has he missed the roster? Is it over? What is going on with him? So we'll have to find that out. Has he made the roster? That's also a question. And then the safeties here, J.R. Reed and Juju Hughes really showed out. Wouldn't be surprised to see them show out again, but definitely, curious with the other safeties. Troy Warner, I think this is an opportunity for Troy Warner. I think you could see a good game out of him. They saw what they liked in, Juju and, of course, J.R. Reed. Now, J.R. Reed is actually played in the NFL. He was on the active roster towards the end of last season, so that's not a shock. I believe Juju Hughes was also picked up back off the practice squad. So these guys have been around, but Troy Warner and Paris Ford, you're trying to see a little bit more out of. Quite frankly, I'm way more interested in Troy Warner. I think he's going to have a pretty good game in more opportunities, especially preseason game 3 is where you're really going to see these guys that are on the outside looking in getting more opportunity. And I think this is when it starts to kind of, escalate a little bit with these guys getting more of an opportunity early on. You could see Troy Warner maybe potentially start this game if they feel that good about what they have in J.R. Reed and Juju Hughes. And then finally, the special teams unit, talking about the kickers, punters, etc. They cut Austin McGinnis. He is gone. So to me, obviously, that makes a lot of sense. That means Matt Gay has won the job. It was pretty obvious he was going to win the job. And I'm not worried about him missing an extra point or, what have you. Really not worried about that at all. Just get it out now, basically. The punter, though, it's very interesting to me that they did not cut. They cut Brandon Wright, but they did not cut Corey Bojorquez. And mainly a big reason for that is because Bojorquez is actually one of the best punters in football, and he's on a cheaper deal, and Hecker's getting paid a lot. So is Hecker on the outside looking in? That might be a little ridiculous, especially because this is somebody that ended up wearing the modern throwback for their promotional videos and pictures and all of that. Normally those guys don't get cut, but you never know. They could make a split-second decision. They could change their mind, and they could say, Bojorquez is not a huge drop-off from Hecker. He could arguably be better. And for the value, it's a no-brainer. It would be tough to see of course, a guy, a franchise face and leader and a favorite, a fan favorite leave. But this is a football decision. We've seen Goff leave. We've seen Gurley leave. We've seen Cooks, all sorts of guys. Michael Brockers especially. I think anybody at this point is up to, be cast off. I mean, this is that type of league. It's the no loyalty, it's a business type of league. So I wouldn't be absolutely surprised if the Rams did move on from Johnny Hecker. The hope is, I don't really know because I love Johnny Hecker, but I'm going to call it like it is, folks. Corey Bojorquez is a very, very good punter, And he makes a lot of sense to keep him over Hecker. I mean, that's just the logistics of it. As far as the long snapper's concerned, we saw Wordle got released, so that means Matt or Zek, who the Rams actually claimed off of waivers from the Titans, has won the long snapper job, so congrats to him. And it goes to show you furthermore that these, claimings, when the Rams went out and claimed Alumba, and then he comes in and plays, the second most snaps on the defense, that's intriguing to me. Could be on the practice squad. When they go out and they, claim a former Falcon that had experience with Raheem Morris and Tyler Hall, that is intriguing to me. I always say claims over signings. At this point in the season, if they are claiming somebody, that means something happened that changed the course of how they are managing their roster. It may be a minor thing, but Orzek was one of those guys. He was cut by the Titans, went on waivers, and the Rams claimed him, and now here he is, and he's going to start for the Rams. Wordle was signed, so that's something to keep in mind. I always bring that stuff up. As far as the kick returner position, I do think that job is going to go to Raymond Calais, and I think it makes a lot of sense to give him the job. If it doesn't go to Calais, I don't know who it's going to go to, because I think Tutu Atwell you want on punt returns. Watch out for Landon Akers as well. I wasn't a huge fan of Jeremiah Haydell's performance, but also give him another opportunity. He did not get cut. He is still around, so we will see. But all in all, I think the MVP of this game, we saw Lawler last week. I do think the Rams want to use him a little bit more, as a pass rusher. I do think, there are, of course, guys like Chris Garrett that I, failed to mention earlier. But I do think that the Rams are going to look at what Lawler did last week and feel like, you know what, we're good with him. He's not going to start the majority of the game. The big-time playmaker, I think, in this one is going to be, well, at least in my opinion, I think it's going to be Jake Funk. I think they're going to take a different approach in this one. Jake Funk on the offensive side of the ball, and on the defensive side of the ball, it may seem a little weird, but I'm going to go with Jake Gervais, the two guys that really stand out in the Raiders game. But you guys let me know below who you think is going to stand out in this game. Let me know why, and that's going to be it. So cannot wait to go through that with you and watch the game, have our first Rams-centric watch party. It's going to be a blast. I cannot wait. I hope you guys are all here. But if not, we'll obviously talk soon. That's going to do it for me. You guys take care, and I'll see you guys later.